Can someone tell me what room number this is?
14. 14.
It's
14.
14, sir.
Thank you. Okay. And this is room number 14. Um, sure. Oh yeah, one final thing I'd like to say is that when I give you a minute between speeches, please take the full minute. Even I need that to read my notes and things like that. All right. So, yeah. Okay. You wanted me to share my screen on the stopwatch. I'll just do that for everyone. Give me a second.
Okay, we're live.
Yeah, great. Is this fine? It's a windowed mode because I'm running other things on the side, but it should be visible.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Give me a second. Notes. All right. Second. Yeah. All right. Please go ahead. First speaker from side proposition. Whenever you're ready, as soon as you start speaking, I will start the timer. So
Sir,
don't worry.
before I begin speaking, I just had a small request.
Sure.
In my case, can you please, instead of giving the share screen of the timer, can you please give me a clap instead? It would be helpful.
Hey, if it's okay, I'm going to keep the share screen on. You can choose to minimize that. I will give you a clap as well. I'm not tinkering with the share screen now. Let that run in the background. Is that fine?
Yeah, so you'll give me a clap, right?
I'll give you a clap anyway. Yeah. I'm just going to
Okay.
let the share screen run as well. All
Okay,
right.
sir.
Go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. A dictatorship, ladies and gentlemen, and a strong dictatorship are two different terms. A democracy, ladies and gentlemen, and a weak democracy, again, two different terms. Hello and greetings to the adjudicator and to my fellow debaters and my teammates. I'm Khushi Arun Mishra, the first speaker from the team, strongly proposing the motion that strong dictatorships are better than weak democracies. Our proposition strongly believes and will draw it out to you in the subsequent speeches how dictatorship in history was a myth. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin with our constructives, let me define the context and definition of the word strong dictatorship for the benefit of this debate and the opponents. A strong dictatorship would have meant that the dictator itself is capable, proficient, loyal, intelligent, and benevolent. He has a soul and a vehemence that is of a leader. In this kind of a nation, even though political freedoms are completely oppressed, the economy and the personal life remains relatively unrestricted, relatively, thus allowing nationwide economical growth, which is our ultimate aim. A dictatorship instigates more stability, more development, and thus a stronger nation. For me, dictatorship, for like a lot of people, dictatorship is very risky as it depends only on a single mind. More like putting all of your eggs in a single basket. Democracy, on the other hand, is not as risky because it depends on the people as if you put your eggs in many different baskets. However, if that dictatorship is led by a great leader, a good dictatorship, the bet will pay off and that nation will surely grow rapidly and thrive under that kind of leadership. It will, for the period of that leader's regime at least, be a good and solid dictatorship which outperforms lesser democracies. Now, what is a strong dictatorship? Take examples of Ashoka and Akbar. They definitely were dictators hidden in the label of aristocracy. Look at how the economy, the infrastructure, this society grew. Reference from books like the Akbarnama stating how women held a status back then. Quite progressive, isn't it? But since then, no dictatorship was a strong one. In fact, they were feeble. Taking the example of Hitler himself. We have seen weak democracies as well. Take the example of Congo and how their GDP growth stays so low today. We have seen people hiding and dictating in the name of democracy, which outrightly shows how weak this format of democracy in itself is. Take example of North Korea. Now, before I end my speech, I would like to state this with the legal concept of looking at the greater good, where when you're on a train and you see that to save five people from five people's life, you choose the greater good and go and kill one person by diverting the train. This is the philosophical concept in legality which is being used, and this is metaphorical, ladies and gentlemen. A country should look at holistic political and economic development so that none of them go to sleep hungry and worried, as praja ki raksha is every raja ka dharma. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that speech. You spoke for 3 minutes and 25 seconds. You guys have a minute on side opposition before your first speech. Sorry. All right. We're ready for the first speech from side opposition. Here.
All right, sir. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yep.
All right. Good afternoon, respected adjudicator and my worthy opponents. I, here Mongia from Team L062, strongly stand against the motion that strong dictatorships are better than weak democracies. Democracy stands for freedom, initiative, and rule of law. I think we've always been told it is of the people, for the people, and by the people. Dictatorships, on the other hand, defy rule of law and public opinion. The question we should be asking here is, aren't weak democracies also democracies? The North Korean people face one of the world's most brutal and authoritarian regimes of all time. The dictatorship in the country not only trivializes and vandalizes rule of law, but basic human rights. Kim Jong un has not only violated basic human right law, but international law framework. My opponents would point out and justify this method of rule that the progress in decision making is faster. But how can this be valid when freedom of speech and expression are clamped down and citizens are subjected to unlawful whims and fancies of a deranged and authoritarian leader? Democracies have slow but effective judgment, and that does not falter even in a fragile one. Censorships, propaganda, and literally eradicating any form of media expression are what makes this method of rule unstable. And ma'am, thank you for reading off the first article you found on Quora when searching weak democracies versus strong dictatorships. It goes without saying that there is no allowance for diversity, individual expression, or basic dignified existence in a dictatorship. In the long run, even strong dictatorships are overthrown by people in form of revolt or unleashing war. Whereas all democracies, weak or no, have room to correct errors since it derives its power from the people and not from an arrogant, self-centered and fascist thought process. I ask you all, is it worth it to put a nation at jeopardy by adopting means that are unstable anyway? I don't think so. In democracy, people elect their leaders. Even in a weak democracy, leaders will fear of the elections and they will try to make a country a better place so they can get elected again. As you can see, even in a weak democracy, there will be lots of development. In a dictatorship, however, the ruler will not change until he she dies. The thought process will not change until he she dies. They do not have to listen to the people and help in the development of the country. They can do whatever they want. I have stated enough modern examples for North Korea. Take China as well. I do not think, and I seriously do not believe that strong dictatorships are the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You guys have a minute before your second speech on side proposition. All right, your minute's up. Give me 1 second, actually. Just looking for a nicer looking stopwatch. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yep.
Okay. Let me start. Greetings to the adjudicator, my worthy opponents and my teammates. The motion before the House is that strong dictatorships are better than weak democracies, and I stand here to vehemently propose the motion. Before I start, let's emphasize on the words strong and weak, which my opposition side clearly mistook it as. A strong system is clearly better than any weak system. A democracy is a great ideology, sure, and my team supports it. But this motion, a weak democracy, is not a democracy, which means what a democracy is meant to be practicing is not getting implemented strongly. It's not. So what is the point? What is the point? We don't have to open a facade and tell everyone that we are a democracy, but in the end mask it up by having an actual strong or bad dictatorship after it. Our paramount argument here is that in this situation, we're drawing a parallel between strong dictatorships and weak democracy. What we're saying here is that weak and strong democracies exist, and strong and weak dictatorships exist. But I repeat, if we come down to choosing between weak democracies and strong dictatorships, we should be choosing the latter. I'll tell you why. Imagine a school is on fire. A teacher has a choice and it tells the children to leave the burning room in an orderly manner and ensure their safety, or ask the children which is the best possible method of leaving the room, taking a poll, ensuring all ideas are discussed and addressed. In the former situation, all children get home to tell their parents about their adventure, and if they're lucky to get the rest of the week off school. In the latter, none of the children did survive, or does the teacher. There are times when democracy does not work, and there should be a benevolent dictatorship, not one based on one view, like North Korea or Nazi Germany, but a situation where the citizens are allowed to voice opinions through referendums and the party implements them. Our team supports the stance that strong dictatorships require a strong leader, a capable, proficient, loyal, intelligent, and benevolent leader, which leads us to believing that it will be better than all weak democracies if it exists. Ladies and gentlemen, democracies are already too messed up. Even strong democracies are too much of a spider web. Now you can only imagine how far messed up a weak democracy has to be to compete with a strong dictatorship, which again leads me to my point: a strong dictatorship is better than a weak democracy. Bad dictatorships aren't as venomous as they sound anyway. Therefore, our position is the following. Weak democracies are a far cry where even a bad dictatorship can reside under the name of a democracy, like North Korea, and all of us know how that has ended up to be. Weak democracies, no progress, no economic growth, nothing. Dictatorships have a better growth rate, and conditionally, if it is ruled by a strong dictator, the nation will flourish. We have known strong dictators like Ashoka, Akbar. We see how the environment flourished with them. Weak democracies, the Republic of Congo, Haiti, Somalia, even Mexico, Greece, Brazil, and Spain, their own citizens, 8 out of 10 of them were dissatisfied with their democracies. The first speaker, ma'am, we are not here to discuss how a democracy gets weak, but we are here to debate why a strong dictatorship is better. Also, North Korea is not a strong dictatorship, but it is a weak democracy. And this statement of yours inclines your whole speech towards my stance. In the end, I would like to end with stats where the situation is far worse in countries with lower GDP or unstable regimes, example, Angola, Rwanda, Somalia, etc., like I mentioned, because resources and opportunities are limited and democratic controls are weak or absent. We need a strong dictatorship if it is compared to a weak democracy. In the end, I would like to say that forgive me for offending your preconceived notion of how the world is supposed to work, but that is not how it works. With this, I rest my case.
I thank the second speaker of Prop for their speech. You guys have a minute before second speech from Op. All right, that's your minute. I'd like to call upon the second speaker from side opposition for their speech now. Here.
Yes, sir. Grisha of L06.
1 second. Grisha. Who was your first speaker?
Hiya Mongia.
Hiya, is it?
Mongia last name.
That's okay. I'm just writing first names.
Okay.
All right. Start whenever you're ready.
Okay, sir, am I audible? Thank you, sir. Now, let me just start off by saying that the argument that is presented by my opponents is absolutely nonsensical. Look at the notion that they're trying to present. They are saying, ma'am, please focus on the word strong and weak. Let us for a while focus on the word democracy and dictatorship. If you bear it down, essentially what you're saying is that some dictatorships are better than some democracies. Have we truly forgotten the crimes faced by our ancestors? Have we truly forgotten why monarchies and dictatorships were discarded? Well, then allow me to remind you of some. And the second speaker said, we don't want to hear about Nazi Germany or something along the lines of that. So let me take the clock back a little and just draw a comparison in Germany itself. We'll meet halfway. Let us take Germany, but let us go a little back. After the World War I, the Weimar Republic was established, a kind of parliament, when the German Empire ceased to exist. Was this a perfect democracy? Absolutely not. Some might even say it is a weak democracy. Germany was still in a broken condition with billions of dollars in debt and its resources being taken away. However, fast forward a few years, and what have you got? A tyrannical leader by the name of Adolf Hitler, who under his dictatorship was responsible for the killings of 6 million Jews and other people of color and foreign takeovers. There is a reason, ma'am, this dictatorship has been discarded as an option, even when the leader is supported by their people. When you mention Ashoka, it's still a dictatorship, and the dictator can change whatever the rules he or she wants if it benefits them. And unfortunately for my opponents, there are many more harms caused by dictatorships in the ancient and modern world than a lot of democracies. And I, thankfully, have the history of centuries before me to prove that point. So now I would just like to say that the second speaker mentioned the example of a school fire and taking executive decisions. Ma'am, we're not talking about a school here. We're talking about a country. We're not talking about children here. We're talking about full-grown adults who are above the year, who are mostly above the years of 18. Okay, and you also said that bad dictatorships are not as venomous either. That's kind of a very bad throwaway point, I must say, as Hitler, my worthy debater, mentioned North Korea, which you also said that is not a dictatorship, it's a bad democracy, when that is factually incorrect. It has been declared a dictatorship by the UN, by the other countries. Saying that a strong dictatorship is better means that you acknowledge the opinion that people's rights can be taken away if the dictator is favored. The first speaker mentioned Ashoka. Okay, fine. Let us take more good monarchs that in history have been represented as good monarchs. Akbar, Ashoka. For how many Ashokas and Akbars were there? Aurangzeb, Genghis Khan, Babur. Tell me, please. I do want to know. And you haven't given any examples of strong dictatorships in the modern world currently. Now, it is very saddening to know that the ideology that my opponents hold should have been left out of their minds, if not hundreds, decades ago, since it is very much outdated. And I would just implore you to look deeper than the surface level and just see how just simply saying strong dictatorship are better than weak democracies hurts those who have faced strong dictatorship, hurts the North Korean citizens, hurts the people under Nazi Germany who survived the Holocaust. And it is absolutely nonsensical to say that strong dictatorships are better than weak democracies. Thank you.
Thank you. You spoke for 4 minutes. You guys have a minute before your next speech.
I'm ready. If you want to start, we can
No,
start.
I need the minute. Need to write scores. Yep, go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I start, China is a communist country, a one party, one rule, and not a dictatorship. With that factual inaccuracy out of the way, North Korea is a weak democracy. Again, okay. Constitution of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. I'll repeat that again. Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that is the name of the country, the official name of the country according to the constitution, says they're democratic. Again, North Korea is a weak democracy hiding an even weaker dictatorship behind them. Let me redefine for you what a strong dictatorship is. Also, speakers, while it is very important to share our bigottrical thoughts, it is also very important to listen to what the first speaker of each side says to define what the debate is. A strong dictatorship would mean that the dictator itself is a capable, proficient, loyal, intelligent, benevolent, and has a soul and vehemence as a leader. In this kind of nation, even though political freedom only is completely oppressed, the economics and the personal life remains relatively unrestricted, thus allowing national-wide economical growth. A dictatorship instigates more stability, more development, and thus a stronger nation than a weak democracy. Let me talk to you about, the first speaker from the side, opposition, spoke about how weak democracies too are democracies. Okay, I do get it that I get to vote for the party that is coming into power, right? But isn't North Korea, they call themselves a democracy. They call themselves a democracy, right? Aren't they the best example of how a weak democracy is? how the leader may still, in a weak democracy, still choose to do whatever they want to do. They fail to understand what a strong dictatorship is. We gave you examples of how life grows when there is a strong dictator who is honest to its citizens, who is honest to their living qualities. While in a weak democracy, the basic assurances, the basic quality of life is tampered with. Your freedom to speech might be affected in a weak democracy. Some people would say that India is a weak democracy because not everyone does have the freedom to speech. Some will say India is a weak democracy when it came to handling the COVID-19 crisis, right? In that particular way, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you how corruption would cross all thresholds in a weak democracy, but not in a strong dictatorship. We are considering the dictator to be a strong dictatorship. Hitler was not a strong dictator. He was one of the weakest people to live on earth, primarily because he could not, be honest to the people of his own dictatorship, right? Of his own people or his own country. Rich become richer and poor become poorer in a weak democracy, ladies and gentlemen, because there are no proper rules. A simple discussion on how to use resources would go very wrong when it comes to weak democracy, because there would be no proper person who would be knowledgeable enough to discuss what is actually needed in the country, no proper opportunities for growth in the country, no jobs, and eventually the death of the country. The survival goes wrong. The people cannot improve their standards of living, and we today, in this time of the 21st century, know what a weak democracy is. We've already quoted it for you, right? We've already said how the Republic of Congo, how Greece are examples of weak democracies, of how people there are more unhappy than they were in the times of Ashoka or Akbar. Quoting weak dictatorships is what the side proposition has chosen their way to be, and they've just quoted weak dictatorships. But ladies and gentlemen, the motion today is not whether weak dictatorships are better than weak democracies. The motion is whether strong dictatorships with strong leaders are better than weak democracies. They had a very stereotypical thinking of a dictator, right? They just thought that a dictator is just there to control all spheres of your life. You cannot speak freely, you cannot do anything freely. But that is not what we're talking about. A strong dictator gives people the right that they want. Democracy, when it is at its worst, is the worst country to live in, because all the leaders will look after themselves. A lot of people will eat the money so that they are benefited and not the people. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. You spoke for 4 minutes. You guys have a minute before the final speech on side opposition. All right. Can you just give me your name on the third speaker from side op?
Yes, sir. It is AVNI SHARMA, Avni Sharma.
Avni Sharma. All right. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay. So in a democracy, either you believe in or you don't. But in a dictatorship, it is a believe in and or else, indicating some serious repercussions. Greetings to the adjudicator and my worthy opponents. I, Avni Sharma, stand before the House by strongly opposing the motion that strong dictatorships are better than weak democracy. Let's be very practical and realistic here. Democracy stands for freedom. The whole population is equal in the eyes of law. The government is controlled by the representatives. There is a fixed tenure of office. Even the world's most powerful state, the US, ladies and gentlemen, elects the American president for a term of 4 years and an additional term following, which he cannot seek presidency again. There is much more to what meets the eye. Weak democracy can be turned into a stronger one, But my dear opponents, a strong dictatorship unleashes hell on earth. Dictators, on the other hand, they squabble. Let me tell everyone present here how fragile democracy is still a democracy. Number one, we youth don't bear unnecessary restrictions. Isn't it unacceptable how my opponents can even agree to support the path of a no freedom which is present in a dictatorship? Have we even given a thought about how would we feel when we are subjected to the oppression, fire, agony of a single leader? Number two, there is a basic ideal of mankind and humanity. Let me quote some headlines here. Stalin purged Russia, people sent to Siberian camps. Hitler seized power, wreaked havoc in Germany and the world in WW2. And the destiny of Pakistan has not been good. I'm sure of the fact my dear opponents have given a blind eye to all of this. Number three, the whole initiative of a democracy is destroyed under a dictatorship. In consideration to how in USSR people would be whisked away by Soviet police, jailed, tortured without any explanation. Number four, improvement of society. How is thriving? How is there any scope of improvement in a strong dictatorship when people are bounded by chains? First speaker of the opposition, ma'am, there is no growth that can possibly exist in hell. And can you even give examples of how a strong dictatorship, according to your definitions, exists in the modern world? Second speaker of the opposition, ma'am, we can at least agree to live in a weak democracy and thrive for its progress. But in a strong dictatorship, you do not even have any guarantee of your life or death. Sir, the third speaker of the opposition, the only good thing about horrendous dictators like Adolf Hitler is that they eventually die. Now imagine a Hitler that lives forever. That will be the beginning of the end. At the end, democracy is sure a bumpy ride, but at least it is inclusive of all. Democracy is for the people, by the people, and of the people. And if it is anything else, it is not a democracy, but an unrealistic, unhealthy, toxic society. With this, I rest my case. Thank you.
I thank all the speakers for their speeches. That was a great debate, and you've made my job a little hard. Give me a bit and let me compile scores and come up with the result. I will be announcing that. After that, you guys may leave.
Sir, are we allowed to shut off our videos?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir.
All right, could you guys, are you guys here? So, when I judge debates, I like to go back and forth all the time, and I always have in my mind who I think is winning currently, and I can confirmedly say that who was winning for me currently kept changing throughout. So it was a good and responsive debate. But at the end of the debate, only one team can win. And congratulations to team opposition for taking the victory in an absolute nail biter of a debate. Uh, uh, yeah, that's it for the results. I think we can end the streaming